Hey friend, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to get your bass guitar to sit perfectly inside the mix. We're going to be looking at getting your bass guitar to sit in the mix today, and we're going to be mainly using compression to do that. And this is going to help you make sure your bass guitar is consistent and gives you a powerful foundation to build the rest of your mix on top of. But before we dive in, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process, step by step, to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at this bass guitar. You can see it up here on the screen, and I'm going to start by playing the finished mix for this track here, and then I'll solo up the bass guitar so you can hear how it sounds by itself. So here's our finished mix for this track. You can see there's a lot of ups and downs visually if we look at our bass guitar. There's a lot of quieter notes as he walks back up to kind of the 1 or to the middle note to our 3 here as he's working through the bass part. But as we listen to it, it stays very even and it stays very consistent. That's how we get our bass guitar to sit where we want it inside the track, is by getting it even and getting it consistent overall here. So let's kind of walk through what we have going here. The main factor in getting our bass guitar to sit in the mix is our compressor, but there's a little bit of prep work we have to do beforehand here. If we look at our first EQ, let me take everything off here except our first EQ. We're not making this all about bottom end here on our first EQ. We're going to leave most of that bottom end work, getting our bottom end to sit where we want it, till after our compressor. But we're taking out a big chunk of what we don't need here in our first EQ so we can compress it enough to get it even. I don't want to be pushing a bunch of top end or pushing a bunch of bottom end into our compressor right off the bat without trimming out what we don't need. So the main factors we're doing here with our first EQ are rolling off excessive bottom end. So you can see I've got a high pass up to about 74 hertz, and that's a little higher than I would usually go. But we had our bottom end was a little out of whack and we needed to control it a little bit. So I'm going a touch higher. So don't let that scare you here. And then I'm pulling out a big chunk of, where are we at? 226 here. So some of that kind of woolly or woody sort of sound that can get kind of honky sounding on bass guitar. We are adding a touch of low end here just because I'm rolling off so much, but don't worry, we're not going to drive our compressor too hard here by pushing bottom end into it. So take a listen here. First step before we do our compression to control our bass guitar is getting rid of the frequencies we don't need. So the high pass here, and then our big cut at around 200 hertz. Take a listen without and then with. Now, you're usually going to see me not boosting at all here in the bottom end going into the compressor, but as you heard, without our EQ, there's kind of a big bulk of the frequency range sitting here above 150 hertz, and we don't have a lot of the low lows. So I'm trying to shift our frequency range a little bit before we move into our compressor to get it sitting closer to where I want it, post-compression and post-EQ. Once we get rid of what we don't need here, so rolling up our bottom end, and rolling out some of this honkiness in the low mid area, that's where we bring our compressor into play. And I love using this 1176 style compressor because it gives me the control I need. It also emphasizes some of that initial transient, and it gives the bass guitar that extra edge of aggression. Sometimes when you push into compressors, it'll give you that evenness that you want, but it doesn't give you any character. pushing low end, pushing bass guitar into an 1176 style compressor like this, you get some breakup and you get some distortion that helps your bass guitar cut through the mix later on down the line. So what are we doing here? We've got the attack, got lights in my face, set at about 0.55 milliseconds, 0.56 milliseconds here. That's slower or medium style for this unit, but it's still very, very quick. We're still under a millisecond. You can see the slowest attack on this compressor is 0.8 milliseconds, so we're still under a millisecond with the slowest attack on this unit. And our fastest attack is way faster than that even. It's 0.02 milliseconds. So we're on the slower medium side for this unit, but we're still very, very fast here. So keep that in mind. Then our release is all the way fast for this unit here, which is 50 milliseconds. That's pretty fast for a release here. That's going to make sure that we're going to grab any of these peaks, any of these louder notes, and then let go as fast as possible to let any quieter notes that follow bring up in the track. This is kind of how we're going to let our bass guitar bloom. We're going to bring down these louder notes, but then let go as fast as possible to let these quieter notes come up inside the mix. I'm going 4-to-1 here, so it's the gentlest ratio, but it's still a more aggressive style ratio. So we're not 3-to-1 or 2-to-1. We're going to be doing some work here on these bigger notes. We want to pull them down and control our bass guitar. Now, there's no threshold or anything on this unit. It's fixed, so we get more compression by pushing more input in. I've got the input up at about -19 here, and then I'm pulling the output down to about -22 here. And you can kind of do some math with this unit by pushing up, a certain amount and then pulling down that certain amount to make sure you stay even in and out, which is just another nice factor about the PreSonus FET comp here. All that to say, let me hit play here without our compressor and then with it. You can see we're doing about 3 to 5 dB reduction, and it helps these quieter notes here come up inside of our bass guitar mix. So it evens out the level of our bass guitar so we can set it exactly where we want it. If we have our bass guitar moving all over the place and it's very, very dynamic, we can't set a static level on our bass guitar fader. We kind of have to move it around or automate it or gain up and down our bass guitar, and that makes mixing our bass guitar very, very complicated. I've always looked at mixing bass guitar similar to mixing vocals. I want to set it where I want it, so I want to push it into the compressor to get character, but also to get consistency volume-wise or dynamics-wise, so I can set the vocal or set the bass guitar exactly where I want it inside the track. That's how you get it to sit perfectly in your mix, is by getting consistency and getting evenness from your compressor here. So listen one more time without the compressor and then with it. And pay attention to some of these quieter parts here as we kick our compressor on and off. Without our compressor, when we get some of these quieter walk-up lines, you can hear a significant drop in volume. We have our bigger, more prominent notes, and then he goes for that walk-up. Our volume dips a little bit, and then we come back up for our more prominent notes, goes back to our walk-up, and we dip a little bit. We don't want that kind of inconsistency in our bass guitar, because then we end up moving our fader all over the place, trying to find the perfect spot for our bass guitar. We throw our compressor in, and it holds these louder lines in place and allows these quieter lines to come up and sit even with these more prominent lines, so we get an even bass guitar across the board here. We'll throw our last EQ in, and let's throw our bass guitar in the mix. And we'll do a before and after. We'll do it on our compressor as well as all our processing here. So next time you're trying to get your bass guitar to sit inside your track, remember, before you do anything, get rid of those frequencies you don't need. So control your bottom end, pull out any honkiness in the low mid area, then go for your compressor. So use your compressor to hold down or pull down some of those louder parts and allow your quieter sections or your quieter passages to come up and even out your bass guitar volume. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an engineer, I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.